Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Delano D'Souza. Coming up on the show this week, the election race heats up in Turkey. Kemal Kilicdaroglu publicly addressing his Alevi identity as he seeks to unseat Recep Tayyip Erdogan from power. Israel marks Memorial Day in the run-up to its 75th independence this week. This year's commemorations taking place amidst a backdrop of deep political divisions. And a fictional TV show has many drawing parallels to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and his family. But first, the presidential election in Turkey is less than a month away. Opposition candidate Kemal Kilicdaroglu is hoping to unseat President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Polls show the 74-year-old, who publicly declared his Alevi heritage this week, is expected to win a majority of votes in the first round in May. Charlie James now reports on why his recent declaration is generating interest in Turkey.
This is Turkey's main opposition leader, hoping to become president in 4 weeks' time. Kemal Kilicdaroglu unexpectedly announced to supporters his identity as an Alevi, Turkey's main religious minority, which has faced discrimination.
I
am a Alevi. I am a sincere Muslim who was raised with the faith of the Prophet Muhammad and Ali. Our identities are what make us who we are.
The statement has grabbed attention. It's been viewed more than 100 million times on Twitter. Kilicdaroglu did not hide his Alevi heritage before, but his decision to openly address it breaks a social taboo, and it's being seen as a call for tolerance and acceptance. It's also seen as a contrast to Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. A decade in charge, he's made his mainstream Sunni identity a central part of his political persona, and has been accused of ridiculing Kilicdaroglu at political rallies. On Sunday, the president accused his opponent of exploiting ethnic differences.
No one asked you about your sect or faith. No one has made any accusations over these identities you hold. So why do you feel the need to appear before the people with your sectarian identity all of a sudden at the age of 74?
Alevis represent around 15% of Turkey's population. Their interpretation of Islam reveres the Prophet Muhammad's son-in-law, Imam Ali, and they worship on Thursdays rather than Fridays. In majority Sunni Turkey, some view Alevis as religious traitors, so it's not uncommon for followers to avoid revealing their beliefs. In his video, Kilicdaroglu calls on young people to vote for him in May and made a headline-grabbing gamble on identity that he hopes can project him as a personality and president.
Now, Israel marked Memorial Day in the run-up to its 75th independence this week. This year's commemorations, remembering fallen soldiers and victims of terror attacks, have taken place amidst a backdrop of deep political divisions. On Monday, thousands attended a joint Israeli-Palestinian memorial. The event, which has always stirred controversy, made headlines once again. This after Israel's top court ordered authorities to allow in 150 Palestinians to attend the ceremony in Tel Aviv, despite a government ban. Let's take a listen now to a Palestinian mother whose son was killed by the army and an Israeli who lost his sister in a suicide bombing.
במשך שנים הייתי סקרן, מה מביא אדם צעיר להרוג את עצמו ועוד עשרות בני אדם עמו. גם בשטחים, בכל שירות מבצעי בשטחים דמיינתי שהנה אני פוגש את מי ששלח את אותו צעיר פלסטיני אל מותו ומותם, ושואל אותו. אין לי תשובה.
في البداية رفضت بشدة، ما وافقت ولا بأي شكل من الأشكال إني أقعد وجها لوجه مع العدو اللي قتل ابني، اللي حرمني من ابني. لكن شوي شوي بدأت أشارك إلى أن صرت عضو نشيطة في المنتدى. وهذه اللقاءات مع عائلات ثكلى علمتني إن وجعهم بيشبه وجعي وألمهم زي ألمي. تبدلت إرادة الانتقام إلى الفهم من الأفضل السعي إلى السلام وليس إلى استمرار العنف.
We can now bring in Robbie Demlin, spokesperson of the Parents Circle Families Forum, who attended this year's ceremony. Robbie, thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Now, this isn't the first time you've attended this ceremony, but did things feel different this time with the far-right government in power in Israel?
Well, yes, in a way, but actually we've been prevented from bringing the Palestinians in
twice before and have had to go to the High Court, the Supreme Court. Now this is the third time, and each time we won, which I must tell you brings great joy to beat the powers that be.
Robbie, why is it important to include Palestinians when marking such an occasion?
Look, that's the whole belief system of the Parent Circle Families Forum and of Combatants for Peace. This ceremony is a joint ceremony, and it is to show that the pain is the pain is the pain. Whatever a Palestinian mother feels about the loss of the child is the same as I feel. There's no difference. The tears are the same color. And it is to tell stories of transformation and of being from hatred to nonviolence to reconciliation. And so many Israelis never had the opportunity to actually hear a story of transformation of a Palestinian. And so this opens up the whole world, actually, because our message isn't only local. You know, there were close to 300,000 people online, never not taking into consideration the 15,000 people that came to the ceremony. And much of that also has to do with what you were talking about, with this government that's in power, because democracy is on the mind of almost everybody. And so a lot of the people who have been going to Kaplan, to the demonstrations and all over the country, came last night to the ceremony. Of course,
Remy, I want to talk about the demonstrations that have been taking place, but firstly, I want to talk about you yourself, because you lost your son, David, back in 2002. He was a soldier, and he lost his life by a Palestinian gunman at a checkpoint, I believe. At what point did you tell yourself that, you know, staying angry will just be counterproductive?
Well, you know, I grew up in South Africa and was very influenced in the anti-apartheid movement and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And actually, when the soldiers came to tell me that David had been killed by a Palestinian sniper, one of the first things that I said is, you cannot kill anybody in the name of my child. So it was already there. I was just looking for the framework in which to prevent other mothers from experiencing this pain, mainly mothers, because I suppose I have this rapport with other mothers. You know, there's no need to build a bridge. We know each other.
And how do you feel about this reform that has been placed on ice right now? We've seen protests take place for months against this judicial reform. How would any change impact your work?
Well, look, if you look at it, we just have been to the court, to the Supreme Court. If it wasn't there, we probably would not have had permission. This is the last bastion of democracy. And so if they hadn't been there, we would not have been allowed to have the Palestinians come in. It's a very difficult time. The Minister of Police in previous ceremonies, who is now the Minister of Police, actually came with a group of people who threw urine at one of the members of parliament, one of the demonstrators outside the ceremony. Last night, there were not so many, surprisingly enough, only about 50 of them trying to make a noise and to disturb the actual ceremony. And the man that you heard talking was so extraordinary, he burst into tears in the middle of his talk, which was so emotional, also because of the noise coming from outside.
Robbie, you mentioned that you moved to Israel from South Africa. Are you hopeful, based on how you've seen things progress in South Africa, that things can improve between the Israelis and Palestinians where you are?
Well, you know, if there had not been the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, there would have been a bloodbath. And I think that what happened in South Africa was a miracle. And I certainly can't afford to give up hope. Hope is a very important equation in the road to any kind of solution. If we don't have hope, there'll never be peace. And I think if you could have experienced this extraordinary feeling last night and seeing the love that was in this whole space, it was quite incredible. You know, and so, no, I can't give up. And as difficult as it is now, this same police minister demonstrates against the work that we are doing in schools with 17-year-old children. But we cannot stop doing the work because of this government. It needs us more than ever now.
Robbie, we'll end on that optimistic note from you. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
And thank you for inviting me.
Now, a television series aired during Ramadan had many in Syria hooked to their TV screens. Smile General is set in a fictional Middle Eastern country, and there are parallels being drawn to Syria's current president, Bashar al-Assad, and his family. Alison Sargent reports.
بإيدك لازم أنت اللي تدخل الرعب لقلوبهم كلهم. الصديق قبل العدو.
He's the imaginary leader of a fictional Arab country. But for displaced Syrians in the rebel-held Northwest, who gathered nightly during Ramadan to watch each new installment, the series Smile General is about a family dynasty they know all too well.
It's a very good show that talks about dangerous incidents and crimes committed by the Assad regime. I call on all Arabs and the entire world to watch this series so they understand why we started the revolution against Assad.
The series talks about all the suffering of the Syrian people from the dictatorship we are living in, under the rule of this gang, from killings to arbitrary detentions.
In addition to the violence, it also touches on corruption. The show revolves around a power struggle between the president and his volatile younger brother who controls the military. Fans see parallels to both current leader Bashar al-Assad and his brother, but also their father, the late Hafez al-Assad, and his younger brother who mounted a failed coup in 1984. Adding to the series' resonance, it was created by and stars exiled Syrians known for their opposition to the regime, like leading actor Maxime Khalil.
This is the first time I've seen a drama that crosses red lines. Its strength lies in the fact that it talks about an Arab regime that's still in power.
The show was filmed in Turkey and broadcast on Turkey and Qatar-based channels available in rebel-held Syria. But all episodes can be found on YouTube, and some Syrians in government-controlled areas report watching it in secret. The show has also sparked reaction online, where many point out the blurred boundaries between fiction and reality.
That's it from me, from all of us on team. Thank you very much for watching.
From North America to the southern tip of Patagonia, join us for a look at the latest political, economic, cultural and social news from the Americas.
Inside the Americas, presented by Jeannie Godula on France 24 and France24.com.
Want to know? Find out here.
With France 24, learn to tell what's true from what's fake on social networks.
Identify the false rumors in European news stories.
Get reliable information about migration.
Truth or fake, every day we bring you information that is verified and put into context.
France 24 is news you can rely on every day across all platforms.